HD Films, Guelph, Ontario, Canada.
Several different real estate agents in several different areas. Basically, I looked from Niagara-on-the-Lake to Guelph area and even further north. I saw this property, the real estate agent saw the property in an open house first, contacted me and thought it was exactly what I was looking for. I came to view the property on a Friday, returned on a Saturday with my husband and a bunch of other people, relatives and friends, and everybody liked the property. I put an offer in within a couple of days. And the offer was rejected, and basically decided to walk away at that point because it was more than we could really afford. However, the vendor approached me and asked me to make a second offer, which I did, and they accepted, and we bought the house.
Sharon Mariani thought she bought her dream home, but a simple mistake turned her dream home into a nightmare. Here's her story and how you can avoid the same costly mistake.
Before I purchased the house, I made sure that I received a certificate saying there were no outstanding work orders and a final occupancy had been done and a final permit was issued on the house.
It was only after she moved in that Sharon began to watch her dream home start taking the shape of a nightmare.
Within 6 months, we started developing some significant cracks in the walls. The walls on the north side of the house are 19 feet, 2.5 inches high. And there were cracks at 16-foot levels, 19-foot levels, some significant cracks, and some shifting on the other side of the wall at intersecting corners. Also, we started to notice water coming into the basement, water around window openings. Obviously, we were starting to get concerned.
As the months went by, Sharon discovered two main issues with her dream home, one of which was a humidity and mold problem created by an improper building envelope.
As far as the humidity problem went, I consulted with an air quality gentleman, and a local builder had them all meet at my home at the same time with this engineer. The air quality people and the builder asked me if I had an indoor pool when they went into the house. The indoor humidity was measured at 79% in November. It should have been 30%. And I hired the indoor quality gentleman. He said we needed to do an air test on the house because he thought the house was too airtight, which he did. And I can't remember the exact figures now, but it was tighter than an Air 2000 home with no ventilation. He recommended that we install an HRV and buy additional dehumidifiers, which we did. It became apparent, however, over time, again, that this was not solving the problem. The water was not being caused by lifestyle alone. It was coming in through the envelope, by this time through the roof, through the windows, basically everywhere. I found out that I had mold growing in the walls of my house. I called the public health unit, who did checks, laboratory tests, took mold samples and had them tested to see what kind of molds there were, and there were many kinds, but the worst kind was Stachybotrys atra, which is a toxic mold that is commonly found, or has been commonly found these days, in school portables and courthouses and public buildings. And these buildings are closed for health reasons.
The incorrectly constructed building envelope was the least of Sharon's problems. Even before the humidity and mold began showing up, Sharon was noticing cracks in the high center support wall in her living room.
The cracks in the walls on the north side of the house, in the high center support wall, were the first cracks that started to show. Called separate people, a number of separate people, for an opinion on what type of cracks they were, and mostly was told that they were settlement cracks, which didn't make a lot of sense to me, because normally settlement cracks are at intersecting corners or in the between the ceiling and the wall, where I had cracking, horizontal cracking at different heights on this high wall. So all of this led to me hiring a structural engineer to investigate. And I hired a structural engineer that was on the plans, had stamped the drawings on the plans for designing the pre-engineered slab for the home. And over the period of the next 2 years, I dealt with this gentleman off and on, because I couldn't understand if there wasn't anything wrong with the walls, why did the cracking continue, and became much worse over time, cracking at every intersecting corner on the high walls, in the middle of walls, bulge cracks in certain areas.
It seemed everywhere she turned, Sharon Mariani found more problems. Eventually, after a frustrating appearance before the local municipal council, she decided her only route was through the courts. During this process, Sharon found out what exactly was wrong with the house.
The lawyers contacted another structural engineer in Toronto. He came out and investigated the house, only the center bearing wall of the house and the intersecting high walls. And he produced a report which was much more comprehensive and basically told what was wrong with the center wall itself. And at that time I found out that there were maximum heights for walls, which in my case, the walls contravened the Ontario Building Code, that the center wall of the house, the center support wall, did not meet any requirements in the Ontario Building Code, and it needed to be reinforced both inside and outside of the house with plywood, and all this had to be under the supervision of an engineer.
And through the lawsuit, Sharon finally took a step that she should have taken, even before making an offer on the house.
As we investigated further, we found more and more problems with the house. I hired a home inspector to look at all the small details of the house.
Yes, it was only in the midst of a lawsuit against the owners, the municipality and the structural engineer, that Sharon called in a home inspector. Most realtors suggest potential owners bring in a home inspector at the beginning of the purchase process.